Today I'll be discussing savings and investment. This is a subject of interest to believers, and rightfully so. And oftentimes believers have very, divergent perspectives about this subject. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus Christ told us a parable, the parable of the talents. And I think that parable puts paid to any doubts anyone might have about whether or not there is a scriptural perspective to the subject of business and of savings and investment. In that parable, Jesus speaks about three different servants whose masters had given them talents. One had 5 talents, one was given 2 talents, and the other was given 1 talent. And then the master went on a long journey, and by the time the master returned, the servant who had been given 5 talents had gained 5 additional talents and returned 10 to the master, and the master commended that servant. The servant who had received 2 talents similarly had gained 2 additional talents and received exactly similar commendation as the one who had received 5. And then there was a servant who had received just a talent but had not added any value to that talent. That 1 talent instead had gone and hidden it and just returned it to the master and didn't add any value. And that particular servant was highly reprimanded, and at the end the 1 talent was taken from him and added to the one who was originally given 5 and who had returned 10. And Jesus said something significant to that servant who had received in this parable 1 talent only. And it is that the master of that servant said something fundamental. He said that you could at least have given the 1 talent to the bankers to keep, and on my return I will at least get my 1 talent back with interest on it, rather than just go and hide it if you didn't want to exert yourself with trying to make a return on that talent. And it was Jesus who told this parable, and therefore Jesus basically endorsed the action and the position of the master in this parable. So what does this then say to us about savings and investment? 1, savings are required. It is required of us to save. Saving is not a reflection of a lack of faith, as some Christians count it. That you're saving, it doesn't show that you don't trust God to provide for you tomorrow in the days and the years ahead. But the Bible tells us that it is God who gives seed to the sower. But the Bible also tells us that every time we receive seed, that seed that we receive is either for sowing or for bread. Okay? The seed that is for sowing is what you need to save, it's what you need to invest, not for consumption. And so for the believer, when you receive any income, when you get this, you must be deliberate about it, and ask God, how much of this? And even if you're not sure, because you have the mind of Christ, make some decision and commit that decision to God. But saving is not something you learn when you have become wealthy. Saving is something you learn from the get-go. And so you must be intentional about savings. Savings is not something you do after you have spent all the money that you want to spend. Saving is something you do before you start spending. And so regardless of what level of income you have, be intentional, be deliberate about saving. And in saving, okay, the point about saving is not to dig the ground and bury, the money doesn't constitute saving. The whole objective of saving is to grow that, your resources, the money available to you. And so, one, you need to be about saving, but you also need to seek out profitable opportunities. Savings, investments often entail risk, and different investments have different risk profiles. Generally speaking, the higher the level of risk, the higher the level of return. So you've got to be able to figure out what your risk appetite is, okay, and determine therefore what kind of investments that you can make. And it's advisable that as you start, especially when your income and your resources are minimal, to be a bit more careful about the level of risk that you take. Of course, when you've grown your resources and you have the capacity to absorb losses, your risk appetite can also begin to grow. But the point is, whether it's a low risk or high risk investment, as a child of God, make an effort to bring Christ into that decision, to ask the Holy Spirit for guidance, even when it seems so obviously profitable. Remember the maxim that not all that glitters is gold, and oftentimes, if it looks or sounds too good to be true, it probably is. God has given us a brain and He expects us to use it. When someone comes to you and says, I have this, whatever, ask questions. Ask questions. Even if it's a brother or sister in church, ask questions. Ask sensible questions about this. And you've got to understand how the returns that are going to come to you are delivered. If I'm going to give me this money at the end of the month, I will give you double. How? What's he going to be doing with that money over that period to be able to generate enough returns to give you, double? Ask sensible questions so that you don't fall prey to all of these Ponzi schemes where people just, present people with, highfalutin investment and fraudulent investment schemes. So what have we established? One, it is, to save. And it's okay to make rules. You can make a rule and say, I would save, X percentage of my income. And I'm not going to be prescriptive about that. But one who said, you've got to be intentional. If it helps you, be disciplined about it, make a rule. Take it out. Sometimes it helps to give your bank a standing order. So when the income comes, your bank can execute that standing order, debit the amount of money that you want to save and take it out, so that you are not struggling with having to make that decision by yourself. Then two, we've said you've got also then to be deliberate. You want to grow your resources. That's why you're saving. So look for opportunities, but we've said be sensible about these opportunities. Make sure that greed does not come in, because greed can take you down a slippery path where you lose everything. Make sure you understand the instrument that you're investing in. Don't let anybody, if you don't understand it, don't invest in it. Let someone be able to. And then finally, it helps to seek professional guidance, even if it's going to cost you money. What it will cost you often is a fraction of the returns that you get, and it's always best to go for such advice where the interest of the advisor and yours are correlated. So if the advisor gets a share of the returns that they make for you, then if there's no return, there's no. But those sort of arrangements where the advisor gets paid whether or not the advice yields benefit to you, you've got to be mindful about. Remember this: don't invest in anything that you don't understand. And I say this again: if the opportunity seems, looks or sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So be careful.